Hi everyone and welcome. This webinar hopefully is kind of an introspective look at ourselves, our clubs, what we're doing really in a crowded market. It's going to go through a little bit of research and insight into market trends at the moment from outside of the sport, especially into Gen Z, what they're doing, what is attracting this generation, and how we can hopefully attract these people into our sport with some kind of just some quick wins, really. Quick early plug for a webinar next Thursday on the 12th. That's when I'll be going into more detail about what we did with the Quid Games and more kind of detailed explanation of how we can get people into the sport. Hopefully tonight, the webinar will help you kind of question what you can be doing, small wins as I call them, nothing major, to attract a new generation, and also help improve the experience of people already in the sport and trying the sport themselves. What I'll do is I'll share my screen in a second and I'll start the presentation. As Joe says, I'm happy to take questions at the end, and I'm going to do that for you now. Awesome. Right, so as it says, improve an event experience. So probably one of the surprising logos on this is the European Championships that were held in 2025 in Belgium and the Kono team. So there will be a full report available on the website in the next few days, but the end of this webinar, the slides towards the end, goes into a bit more detail about how the Kono team and the ASOM team, the Antwerp Sprint Orienteering Meeting team, have really taken the sport to an audience and a country that has no real experience and history of the sport, and has really modernised the sport in a way that I think as an organisation and as members ourselves, we can take some hints and tips from. So, as I said, a little bit of insight. So this has been done from Running Industry Alliance, Massive Wave Research, Strava for Business. This is recent insight from 2025, a couple of different sources of insight. So obviously we want to attract anyone and everyone to the sport. Gen Z have really focused on for this in particular because they are the probably movers and shakers in terms of the people turning their backs. You might have seen this on the news recently, but turning their backs on partying and drinking as such, and really turning towards sport, the rise of social sport in particular. And this is a generation in particular that are really on the reach for something new. And that something new is sporting communities. So as it says at the bottom from the Strava for Business report, and this was a business report that was worldwide and global, but it also has specific areas for the UK as well. They call it a generational pivot. Young people, especially Gen Z, turn away from passive screen time and towards real world experiences. From running and racing to strength training, hiking, joining clubs and forming new communities rooted in motion rather than media. So this generation and the generational age that we're talking about is between 40 and 30, say roughly. They are trying to form new communities, new social opportunities, and are looking for that through sport. One of the main reports that came out in 2025 was a Sport and Social Running Culture report. This was done again in conjunction with Running Industry Alliance, and this picked up mostly on Google searches, YouTube searches, and brand insights. So we're talking about brands such as ASICS, Garmin, people that we've worked with in the Quid Games themselves. So a high amount, 49% of this audience are hitting the pavement. By that we mean running, social running, walking, you name it. Most importantly, 3/4 of these prefer to run with somebody else. And I think that's something that we need to bear in mind with the offers that we're giving to people, that this generation feel that they're more empowered, maybe more confident to either try something new or to want to continue to do something when they have the opportunity to do it with somebody else. As I mentioned before, this generation are significantly more likely to go on a run club to socialise and enjoy new experiences rather than improve performance. 72% of the people go to meet new people and feel part of a group. That should say P. And another thing to think of, and we'll touch on it later as well, is that 65% of these post about their running on social media. So not only is it something that they do for enjoyment, but it's also something that's becoming part of their identity as well. So are we providing experiences that make them want to post about them on social media? So a few quotes here. One of them from the BBC further down, but running is prioritizing community. This person says, more of my friends are getting into it. It's becoming something we do together as a social activity. An important thing in the second quote is that running comes across on social media, such as Instagram and TikTok, as a welcoming community. And that's something that I want to be a part of. From the BBC article that was just a few days ago about the sport, we would call it, high rocks. I'm not sure if it's a designated sport, but anyway, it's a phenomenon, which is, if nobody knows about it, it's a mix between strength training, running, CrossFit, and it's really took off in the past 2 years. So from the BBC article, it says, exercise doesn't need to be expensive or complicated. It's about finding something that makes you want to go back and do it again. And I think, again, that's a real interesting sentence for us. We want returned customers. Only when people return to the sport and come back to another event will they then buy into it, and then will they buy into membership. And the last one, the generational fan study, is that I think this is something that's really key as well, especially with COVID and the isolation that this generation, not to say suffered, but lived through for 2 or 3 years of their lives, and quite probably an important stage of their lives. Is that this quote, we used to have to go into the office 5 days a week and we socialize through work. A lot of that cohesion has gone, and therefore it needs to be replaced. People want to be together in a community they enjoy, and running has myriad diverse communities. So again, that's something that I think is pertinent to what we are offering as a sport, and to this generation especially. It's that they've missed out on that social cohesion for so many years. When they are coming back, or when they're trying something, they still want that social cohesion. They still want that opportunity to be with other people, and not necessarily turn up to a new sport by themselves, or not have that opportunity to socialize. So last part of the research. So this research took into account many events that you probably know across the UK over a 4-year study. So it asked 40,000 people that took part, for example, in the on-mountain marathons, the Lakeland area events, different large-scale mass participation event, about what the participants were looking for, and they did it reoccurring year on year, asking the same participants, and also new people into the sport as well. So the new people on the left-hand side of the graph, new packs, so they're kind of new passengers, they call them. They're new people into the sport. So which of the following social media platforms do people spend the most time on? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok are the new people that have come into mass participation events, like I mentioned before. They're the three main ones, and YouTube. And the people that have been in sport longer, even though Instagram's still a high number, 55%, it's very much, it's almost 20% lower than the new people, but they tend to go on Facebook a lot more. So again, hopefully a bit of insight. If we're trying to attract new people, where are these people sitting on social media? The bottom graph, I think, is very important. Percentage of people who sign up with others. And again, we see that real cohort of 18 to 24-year-olds. And remember, this is out of 40,000 people. 80% of these people sign up with somebody else. 65%, still a significant number of 25 to 34-year-olds sign up with somebody else. And as you can see, that number diminishes the further we get down that graph, the older the person becomes. So again, are we wanting to attract people to the sport? Absolutely. Are we wanting to attract 16 to 40-year-olds to the sport as per our strategic aim? Absolutely. Here's the evidence. What do we need to do? We need to offer them a route in with somebody else as well. And the last kind of chart there, scaled out of 10, what's important to these 40,000 people that are taking part in events across the UK, that potentially our market. Main ones there, easy to get to and from the event site. That was the highest one, but coming in very closely behind that, good finish atmosphere on the course. And you can see the weakest ones there, good quality medal, course not too crowded, you know, friendly marshals and volunteers, that ranks highest as well. So these again are all things to think about when we're creating events that, you know, they don't have to be JKS, they don't have to be Scottish 6 days in size, they don't have to be Quid Games in madness, but this is what people are looking for. So how can we in our local level D event at Sunnyhurst Woods on Saturday with Pendle Forest, how can we incorporate these things and make them easy for people to access and enjoy? So as I said, we're going to go through some small wins in this webinar today. Hopefully some things that will make you think, make you kind of wonder if we can just introduce these drip feed into events, try things, nothing major, hopefully nothing too scary, and stuff that, as I said, with Kono and the European Championships, and working outwardly as I have done with other brands in the past 12 to 18 months. It's just things that I've thought of and kind of thought about myself, about what we're offering and what my club's offering, and you know, are we actually attracting people in the right way? So I think the main thing, and I'll shout this, you know, from the rooftops as long as I can, is to market it excitingly. You know, we need to think about things from a newcomer's point of view or just from a Joe Public's point of view. The majority of people, and this was very obvious at the National Running Show at weekend and the outdoor expos that we've been to, and people that, you know, we speak to about the sport, they do not know that there is a colour system in the sport. They understand it once we start to explain it, but everybody would know the difference between an easy, a tricky, or a difficult course, for example, a short, medium, and long. So, for example, we have a night event at Pendle Forest on in a few weeks' time. We're trying to attract more newcomers to the sport, and we've simply renamed them easy, intermediate, and tricky. You know, next to that, it says TD 2, 3, and 4 is in light green, orange, and yellow. So our orienteering market can instantly understand what TD 2, 3, and 4 means, but the people that don't know what TD 2, 3, and 4 means, they can quite easily see that, oh, I want to pick up the easy course. So it's just changing the language about it, simply changing controls to checkpoints. And I appreciate there's purists on the call, you know, but it's not something that we have to do for everything. It's not something that we need to do when we're marketing the JK, for example, or the British Champs, for example. But, you know, talking about controls to people doesn't resonate. Talking about checkpoints to people, and a checkpoint racing, you've got to get to the checkpoints first, so you've got to collect as many checkpoints as you can, really does resonate with people. So it's just, again, changing that language on social media posts. Again, with dibber, timing device, can we just change those dibbers as well? I think this bit is really pertinent after the weekend that we had at the National Running Show, a really busy weekend, lots of people coming to the stand, is that we need to show off the great bits about the sport, our unique selling points. So many people came to the stand and said they've been looking at it and, you know, to give it a go. And so many people that we talked to didn't realise that you didn't get to see the map or the checkpoints until you started. And that really was kind of eye-opening for them, that, you know, that was exciting and that was something different. And we're not doing anything. We're not, you know, we're not remaking the wheel. That is our sport, you know. So let's celebrate it. These things are now what people are looking for in the marketplace. They're not looking for a 5K route that they can do anytime. They're not looking for a 10K route that they can do anytime. They're looking for unpredictability. They're looking for excitement. They're looking for collecting checkpoints. Our sport naturally has that. That is our sport. So let's show off the great bits about it. We need to make sure, and we've took a more centralised point of this in our communications and marketing over the past 12 months as well, that the pictures that we showcase for marketing show the key elements of the sport, running with a map, you know, a control point, or even better, both. There's been too many times, you know, and we've been guilty of it ourselves centrally, you know, myself at the club a few years ago, when we just put on a picture of a beautiful, you know, range of landscape or a nice hill, and it says, come to Darwin Moor and do orienteering. And it's just a picture of Darwin Moor. But, you know, Joe Public doesn't even understand what the sport is from that picture. But all of a sudden, if you introduce the image of a control point or somebody running with a map to the control point, sending out the same message, then we can start getting that imagery of orienteering out there. And as it says at the bottom there, if you don't know by now, hopefully you do, but images such as, the ones behind this where you can see one of our GB athletes, Emily Gibbons, running with a map, they're available and can be accessed via your membership login on the online image gallery to download and add to your social media posts. So this is what I'm saying about marketing it excitingly. So I still see plenty of posts advertising orienteering events in beautiful areas. Can't deny it's beautiful areas. And it'll just show a picture of a beautiful area. So as I said, Pendle Forest, we've got an event on Saturday at Sunnyhurst Woods in Darwin. Price rise from tomorrow night if anyone wants to sneak in. But this is Sunnyhurst Woods and it's a beautiful picture, But what does that say to anybody just scrolling past? Orienteering at Sunnyhurst, Saturday the 7th of Feb, green, blue, red, starts 1 p.m, entries, race, sign up, close Monday. What are we saying there? We're not really saying anything apart from people that have bought into the sport, probably already signed up. Anybody that's scrolling past that or has an interest in the sport knows absolutely nothing from this post. So as I asked there, is it exciting to even us as orienteers? I could see a picture of a very minuscule part of Sunnyhurst Woods there. That's it. As I've mentioned before, do people know what green, blue or red means? Could we reword that into, tricky, long, tricky and, intermediate, but longest great course? It doesn't have to take much to just change something to market it excitingly. Does it sound like anyone could go along? So if I was reading this and I've just come across the page, I'm looking to get involved, does that say to me, newcomers welcome? Does it say to me, that I'm welcome to bring along a friend? What does it say? Is it a walk? Is it a nature open day? Can I get in that house? So these are the things that, we have been all, doing for the past few years, but actually when we think about it, it doesn't actually make quite enough sense to be marketing our posts like this. So this is our actual post from Sunnyhurst Woods. You can see I've just used the generic stock picture that's available on the membership login page. I've got somebody running with a map. I've got a control point. No idea where this is. It's definitely not Sunnyhurst Woods, but that's not going to affect anyone. It's got a start times and it's got the date as well. And what you can see on the left is the Facebook post that goes alongside it. I won't go into all of the details. You'll be able to read this if you want to go onto the Pendle Forest Orienteering Facebook page. But one of the paragraphs just says, do you want to try a sport with excitement, unpredictability and a chance to explore at your own speed? You can do it as a family or with a friend. We promise once you try it once, you'll see why we love it. Simply visit the checkpoints in number order, but you won't see where you are until you start. Route choice and speed is up to you. We've got the different courses, a bit about Sunnyhurst Woods and some links there as well. That might not be read by our seasoned orienteers, by the people that have been in the club 25 years, but it'll more than likely be read and very much understood by people that were thinking of coming along. At least it says to them they're welcome to come along. They can bring the family, they can bring the mate. At least it says to them a little bit more about the courses and it gives you links to it as well. On the bottom right, just a simple Street O card. It doesn't take long whatsoever to be doing these on Canva, especially the Street O's. All I do is I go in, change the title, change the date and the location on the bottom right, and that's it. And with that, not only is it quick, but it also starts creating a bit of a brand as well. Whenever people see this image on our Facebook page, they know that Street O's back as well. So same goes with the spring series. On Facebook Meta, you can schedule posts. I schedule 3 or 4 posts in a week, maybe over a course of 2 weeks in one go. All I need to do for the next spring series event at Lee Quarry in March is go in, edit that, edit the details, change the courses if applicable. And again, it doesn't have to be something that's a major onerous task for somebody. One of the main things I think we need to start doing as a sport is market it outwardly. Get it off your own Facebook page and get it onto others. So this is, for example, the Burnley Urban Score we did before Christmas. All it was 45 minutes, get as many as we can in 45 minutes on an urban map. But I put it in Burnley, Tinbobbin, Ironhill, Gano and surrounding areas. Anyone that doesn't know anything, that they're Burnley areas. And I just shared it in the Burnley groups, and I just shared it with a bit of information at the top and a click and a link to the original page on Facebook at the bottom. The second paragraph says, fancy trying something different than the usual walk around the block or treadmill run, come and try Pendle Forest Orienteers event around Burnley. So we need to stop preaching to the converted. Keeping stuff on your own Facebook page is great. Getting it out there onto other local pages, what's on groups, Couch to 5K groups in your area will help spread the word. If people don't know you exist, they don't see it, so it doesn't have to be an onerous thing. To do that, you just join the group. Sometimes you don't even have to join the group. Click on the Facebook post that's on your own Facebook group with the three dots at the top. Click copy link, write some copy, write some paragraphs, and click post. That's as simple as it is. Let your main post do the talking. So I think this is key. This is an image of a guy finishing at the Quid Games, recently, Quid Games 2. I think what we have to realise, unfortunately, is that we are in a world of opportunities now. It's not as it was even 10 years ago, let alone as it was 40 years ago. There's so many things that are pulling at our time, pulling at our money, pulling at our resources. There's so many new sports that have kind of risen to the core. There's so many kind of distractions. There's Netflix, to stay at home and watch of an evening. That in a world of opportunities, we need to make sure orienteering is a choice that they choose. Put simply, we want people to come back. So reflecting back to the research at the start, and not just research into Gen Z or newcomers, but just people in general, the people that turn up to your events. I can guarantee I can think of 10, 15 members of my own club that are members of a fell running club and a trail running club, and they're a member of a running club tonight that meets called Up the Tempo. And there's so many distractions and so many other pulls that we need to realise that just offering the sport itself might not be the pull that it used to be. And that's just a societal change. It's not a sporting change. It's nothing to do with the volunteers that we have on, to hand or funding or anything. That's just society these days. So what do people need? They need a suitable challenge. Most importantly, they need the ability to achieve. There's no point people signing up to events, especially newcomers or people giving it a try, if the courses are too difficult for them, if they're hard to understand, if they're not going to come along and have fun. People have actively chosen to come to our orienteering events. They've took that big step. And, think about, when was the last time you tried something new? It was probably a long time for a lot of us. So to go and try something new, which is quite a strange sport, and I say that with a lot of love for the sport, as you know, and to try and do something that's totally alien to you, at the very least, you want to go and have fun, so at least make it fun for people. People want a feeling of value of time and money. As I've said, there's so many distractions, and I've decided to spend £7 with you tonight. What can you do for me? But most importantly, people want to feel welcomed. It doesn't matter if you've been in the sport 40 years or this is the first time that you've come. It's important to feel welcomed and that you want people there. We want newcomers. We want people to have chosen to come to the event on Wednesday night rather than their running club social 5K. So maybe teaching people to suck eggs here, but I think there's times we lack having confident and warm volunteers. I think that is one of your main key focus areas when you're thinking about volunteer roles, or if you're organising an event, is who do we have, on the start? Who do we have welcoming people? And I appreciate that we might be hamstrung with the people that we have, but if you've got somebody that is confident and is warm and is welcoming, they need to be the first port of call that people see, really. They need to be able to explain succinctly the sport and the basics of a map in under a few minutes. And this could just be the basic colours, to do them number order, if applicable, to do what you need to do with the dibber. if applicable, where they are right now in relation to the map when you pick it up. They don't need War and Peace. It's, the first event, it's the seventh event. What do they need to know at this stage? What will get them going? What them enough that they can start learning on the job? And it says that if people are overloaded with information, it will become daunting and seem unachievable, even if it's not. People don't want to turn up and then have a 10-minute conversation about the map, the colours, the different, you know, the different aspects of the sport. They will pick that up in time. What do they need to get going and to achieve? I think a thing that we tend to forget is we forget about the conditions sometimes, and it might seem a mute point, but are we explaining this to people, or are we welcoming people when they're absolutely freezing, or it's banging it down, and the wind's driving against them and they're getting soaked wet through? Could there be an inside space? Could it be done, somewhere else? Could this information have been sent in a pre-event email that it's just a top up when you greet them? People need to be happy. Think about where you're greeting them and the conditions that you're greeting them. And the bottom thing I think is important. I think sometimes we all get too caught up on offering TD2 to TD5 courses at an event, but there's nothing wrong with offering 2 or 3 small courses that can be completed within 15 or 20 minutes. We need to make it achievable. People still getting a 40-minute run out or a 50-minute run out, they'll still be feeling just as accomplished and just as much kind of value for money as somebody completing a green course. So there's nothing wrong with creating 2 small courses that they can do, enter as one, but it's 2 small courses where people can achieve, come back, go out on the second course, achieve, come back. It's that, again, it's that reinforcement. And, I'm a massive fan of this, and my club have been doing it for 2 years now to great success, but introducing that red course is perfect, not only for attracting runners in the club and fell runners, but even seasoned orienteers. We had over 20 odd of people doing the red course at our event in January. We've got almost just as many people doing the red course as we have at the green course at weekend, and it's not just people that are coming from a running background or a trail background, it's also orienteers that don't necessarily want to move up to TD5, got no interest in doing a blue course, but they still want to be running 6 or 7K, and there's nothing wrong with that. Red course is perfect for giving them an option. And as it says there, if people are successful, they're likely to return. So simple wins. I think this is important. Sociable spaces, going back to what we talked about before, make it a place for people to connect. I appreciate there's still events going on out there, especially not midnight events, but midweek events that, still happen out of the back of a car boot. But especially these days, it is really easy to put an event on from a pub or a cafe. People are desperate for business. I've not had one business or pub or cafe come back to me in my 4 years of planning my street O's for my clubs or urban events that have turned around and said, no, we don't want 60 people in our business spending money on a Wednesday night. So having something sociable helps that people relax. Again, it goes back to that Gen Z demand that we said before, but it also helps them feel more connected to the club. You can sit down with them afterwards, talk about the map, how did they do, for example, and more likely to feel part of a club or want to come back if there's a sociable space there. This one will be probably controversial with some people, but just having music at download, it could just simply be a radio station or, a Spotify channel from a mobile Bluetooth device, just a little bit of atmosphere at download in a download tent or something, or even in your social space can just help just make people feel a bit warmer. These days, it's granted, as we saw with the study before of 40,000 people that are doing events around the UK. People expect toilets, people expect clear car parking instructions, and people expect a bag drop. Without these 3, we're going to really struggle, because these are the part of the course in any running race that you go to these days. They need to be happening. Start and finish, as we've said, sheltered, easy to see, easy to get to, manned and welcoming. There's still plenty of events that I get to the finish and there's nobody there to tell me that I'm amazing and I did brilliant. Not that it matters to me, but to any other person that might have done it for the first time, or might have had an issue out on the course, or just something, just somebody having somebody on the finish line, welcoming people back, saying, well done, did you enjoy that? Downloads this way, don't forget to download. You look like you've had fun, for example. It's just something that's a real simple win. Not always possible, but live results, people are used to instant results these days, whether it's our big events or whether it's people doing, the ARM and all of the activities that I said before. People are getting impatient for results. So where possible, have quick and, expected results. As I've said before, achievable courses. I know MDoc have, really successfully introduced the long light green, which is in essence very similar to a red course, in their park series. Absolutely fantastic. I did one myself last year. So just be open to doing something different with the courses that make it achievable for people. And as I keep going back to, people have chosen to be there to enjoy themselves. So give them every opportunity to do so. So I won't go through all of these, but, as we've alluded to with the courses, and as I always say, and something that's kind of like irks me a little bit and, possibly still happened at my club when I joined them 5 years ago, is do we need to be pushing people on the pathway to TD5 when they join? I did it probably through naivety because I wanted the distance, not realizing what a blue course in the middle of Chinley Churn would do to me and do to my soul. But, it's the pathway to TD5 isn't for everybody, and people joining the sport don't necessarily join the sport thinking, I want to join the sport and learn how to be taking bearings to feel confident about finding a pit in the middle of nowhere. So just bear that in mind. Like, jumping to the third one, suggests progression if the interest is shown. So if people do want to build the skills and build up to TD5, that's fantastic, but don't force it. If people are happy sticking on an orange or a light green, or people like me these days when it's terrain want to do a red course, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So we just got to go where people's energy is, and that's a saying that I'll keep coming back to. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. Hero controls, we don't need everything to be an absolutely fantastic route choice, even though that would be fantastic, or a hero control at the top of a ski slope, for example. But 2 or 3 or 1 or 2, start and end, especially towards the end, because that's what people remember. Get people talking. What is the one leg where you can look back and think, that was a good one, that one. And that's the one that people are talking about with a map at the end and saying, what did you do 10 to 11? And I think that's a really important kind of piece to remember. What's our hero control for this event? I'll probably get shot down for this one as well, but do we need to have people, newcomers especially, mispunching? Do we need to have them not achieving anything? Do we need to have somebody who's grumpy on download saying, oh, you've mispunched, and that's it, and I wander off back to my car wondering what I did wrong, or, well, that was a waste of time because I'm disqualified, So if you do have a newcomers course, or you've got, a red course, if you've just got plenty of newcomers that are doing a course, for example, could they possibly have a time penalty where if they've missed one out, it gets 15 minutes added to them, or 10 minutes, or if they've gone to the wrong one, it adds 10 minutes. So they're still getting a result at the end of the day. They're still getting the times at the end of the day, but, they have been penalised. I'm not saying take the penalisation out of there because that's part of the sport, but also at the same time, if people are coming to the sport and have done something wrong, which they will do we really want to be telling them so grumpily that they've done something wrong and they're disqualified? Because they wouldn't get that in a 5K or a 10K race that they just turned up to. So not diluting the sport, but what could we alter about a newcomers course? Maybe, just a maybe. So I'll keep coming back to this. What is winning? People returning, that's winning. And even better, bringing a friend. As I keep alluding to, if you haven't, offer pairs and teams options. We do it on our PFO Street O's, we have done for years, and we've done it on our urban scores. We've just done it on the Townley Night O for the first time in terrain. People can still enter as a solo, but having that pairs and teams option where people obviously are paying more, but they can join along with a friend, might open the door to a few people. And I know it will open a few doors to people trying night orienteering for the first time in a few weeks' time in Burnley, because they can go around with a friend, and they've said that to us. So we'd be stupid as a club to just keep a solo entry. It doesn't make sense. Offer the option. And the thing is, what we've got to remember is that we are competing with people and events where people can go around together naturally. Park run, the Lakeland, the obstacle courses. People are used to going round with their friends or in a group. So what? Let's introduce them. As I keep saying, and as I keep going back to, I'm not talking about the British champs or the JK or anything here, but I'm talking local level D events. I really can't see the harm of offering pairs and teams options. You are more than likely to try something with a friend or your partner or your dog. I know I did. I went round with my partner for the first 18 months of orienteering, and if I wouldn't have done, I wouldn't have stuck in the sport. So, just having that option there is better than not. And as you can see, this is the competition. Parkrun, there's always a calf, pretty much always a calf. Manchester Marathon, people are finishing together and running together. They belong. Do they look like they're having fun? Seems like they're having fun to me. So most of the times you enjoy something when you're doing it with someone else or with part of a group. And this, unfortunately, is the society that we have for people's time and money. So if we're offering the only opportunity to go around on your own and, not socialize, we're not going to last very long. As I said before, and as I say in many walks of life, this is one of my favourite sayings, to go where the energy is. There's no point flogging a dead horse. Go where the energy is. What's happening in your area? And you'll see what's happening in your area if you just have a look around Facebook groups. These are just two. One in the background's Cast Runners, which is a local bar in Rottenstall. One in the foreground's a cake group in Rottenstall that runs on a Saturday morning. So what have we done? We've done our street O from the Cast bar. It was a hardship, obviously. Right where these guys meet on a Wednesday evening. So we did a street O on a Wednesday evening there. And then these guys only meet on a Saturday morning. So we did a rehash version of a street O on a Saturday morning for these guys as well. So you need to go where the energy is. There's already an established audience out there for you. If you turn up to people and say, can we take over a club night for you? 9 times out of 10, you will get a yes, because the run leaders there don't have to think up a route for that night. They don't have to think up of anything else. They will take it on. So as it says there, like recent street O, maybe lots of clubs do street O's and events of a weeknight. Was it the right place but the wrong time? So, as I've said, do it on a Saturday morning. It could be just a half an hour on a Saturday morning. It doesn't need to be anything. You can just tell them, the triangle, the start was somewhere else. You're here. You don't even need new maps for it. Just give them the information that the triangle is somewhere else. Doing a couple of them over a couple of weeks, familiarization. They look forward to it. The second week, they know what's going to be happening. And there's lots of stuff out there, whether it's local couch to 5K groups, which are, prominent at this time of year, women's running groups that, have shot up and got a lot of funding from Sport England at the moment about women's, feeling safe while they're out running. Men's mental health group, friendship groups, you name it. Take your product to them. Go where the energy is. So, as I said to you before, the reason why Kono and the EOC logo are on this is because myself personally, have done the Antwerp sprint meeting events for maybe 3 or 4 years now. Every time that I've done them, I've been blown away with how innovative they are, their arenas that they have. I'm sure probably some of you on the call have done the events yourselves as well. The atmosphere that they have. But not only with this, we're not talking about events that are in Sweden, Scandinavia, or anywhere that's got a history of the sport. We're talking about a country that has a newer history of the sport than we do. It had at the time less international success that we do. They're more successful than we are these days. And yet here they are putting on fantastic events, not in the middle of nowhere. They're putting them on, in the heart of Antwerp this year. They've done it in the heart of Ghent. They've done it in major tourist spots. and they've done it fantastically well. So I was pleased to be able to do a study in 2025 of their group, and the European Championships too. And their group are called the Kono Group. That's their business. And the Belgique, I won't attempt to say it, but their version of BOF, the Belgique Orienteering Foundation, should we call it, simply weren't big enough or experienced enough to host the European Championships in 2025. So it was actually Kono that delivered it on behalf of them and in conjunction with them, but basically it was Kono that delivered it for them. So as it says with the overview, it highlights how Belgium, despite limited public awareness of the sport, has built a loyal volunteer base. It secured meaningful sponsorships and gained access to private and urban spaces through strong relationships and participant-first planning. And I think that's the key thing. And it's a thing that Jeremy, the head of Kono, keeps coming back to as well, is that they're not there to really make money or make profit. They're there for the participant to be having a great time. So Jeremy was very kind to give lots of his time, sharing insight into what they do and how they do it and what works and what doesn't work. And these were the words of Jeremy as well. He says, Kono, the business, tries to survive on team building and other orienteering activities. So from that, and as you'll see in a second, what they do is they host yearly city runs. They map out cities that, are not necessarily being used for the ASOM that year, but they sell them to businesses for team building opportunities and different things to keep the business going throughout the year. He organises ASOM for the love of orienteering, and with every decision we make in the organisation, we put the participants, elites, partners, and even our volunteers first. And as he says there, obviously it's hard to make a lot of money out of an event with that kind of attitude, but it helps with the bonding with all of the stakeholders at the event, especially the orienteers and the volunteers. And if you've ever been to an ASOM event, or you were lucky enough to see any of the action or be at the action of the European Championships in 25, they do have a solid volunteer base. Something that we could dream of, but something that's not also unattainable as well. So as we said, and as you can see from the branding at the background there, Kono run the city runs throughout the year. They also have been doing ASOM for over 10 years, and 20,000 people from 40 countries over 10 years is absolutely fantastic. And you can only imagine in the early days within Belgium and the awareness that it would have been 10 years ago, they've not only managed to stick it out for 10 years, but they've also each year and every year that I've done it, high quality courses, access to urban and private areas. How they do it is absolutely fantastic. And if anybody did turn out in 2025 like I did, looking at a Google map beforehand and kind of doing some research into the town of Turnhout, you wouldn't have thought it would have been as interesting as it was. But how they utilised, I don't want to say a boring city, but just the general town rather than places like Ghent and Antwerp, for example, how they utilised it to create such a fantastic weekend was testament to the stuff that they're doing. So this was Kono in their own words. So they position orienteering as a fun team-based adventure. So I'm talking about the city runs that they do. And the picture that you can see there as well with the bibs that you can see in the city runs, these were actually during the Turnhout City Race. So not only do they have courses for you and me, should we say, for the orienteers in the room, but they also have a city run course, a couple of city run courses throughout, and these would be simple 5 or 10k, 10, 15 checkpoints, and so they keep that branding within their ASOM weekend as well. So they try to sell orienteering, and they successfully sell orienteering as something that's fun rather than something that's a niche competitive sport, which it can be, but it does engage non-orienteers to build a lasting interest. So what Kono do really well is they work really well with the local authorities. If anyone was at Turnhout last year, they work absolutely fantastic with the municipal buildings. The race on the Saturday evening started in a police station, so it's simple things like that I'm still talking about almost a year later. that they do. And I say simple, I appreciate the permissions, and obviously with doing the Quid Games myself with things, I appreciate the headaches that come with asking for places like these. But as again, we go back to those hero moments, things like that are the things that attract people and keep people in the sport. One of the key things that they do with the authorities is events are positioned as part of a broader community wellbeing and outdoor activity initiatives, and they align with public health and youth engagement goals. So not only are they putting on an orienteering event and we want to attract 300, 400, 600 people to spend some money in Turnhout, but they also sell it successfully to the councils and to the people that are making the decisions as something that the whole community can get involved in. And they do offer discounted entry to local communities as well. So it's a win-win basically. As I said, and as you can see, all of the city-run branding is always in the ASOM events, and it's consistent as well. A lot to read here, but you can find it again, obviously, on our YouTube channel, and I won't go into it, but he was very kind to share what they do and how it engages people. So, as I mentioned, the city runs, easy for everybody. They're the things that we can introduce really easily. They make sure that their routes run through high visibility spots. It doesn't need to be high footfall spots. There's a difference between what Jeremy said, that where things get photographed the most, or iconic buildings, or you've got a place that, people are going to sit and bar watch, not bar watch, but watch you from bars, for example. That's where they make sure the runs are. They don't make sure that every single run they do is hidden away on a campus somewhere. They make sure that they put it through the heart of the place that they're going into. They make sure for the city runs that the entry is consistent in terms of pricing, that people get, maps, refreshments, bags, storage, etc. T-shirt for optional, that doesn't change. And that year-round engagement. So it's not just that they were in Turnhout last year. Last year, they were in Giel, or Heel, should I say, Turnhout, Hasselt, the Air, Herentals, all of the places that the European Championships went to, all throughout the year as well. So it's that constant touch point of orienteering is happening. A lot to read here, so I won't read it all. Again, you can find these slides afterwards, but one of the main things about Jeremy and the work that he does is that they are very, very good at attracting sponsorship. This image was from the Turnhout base last year. So they had the same base over 2 days, which was a private school, branded up with the sponsors. So Runners Need is the marquee that you can see there. The feather flags and the white branding's Kennis, which is a local car dealer. They had absolutely nothing to do with Kennis before they did the event, but simply thought, who has the most money? Car dealerships have the most money. And they went to 12 of them, 12 car dealerships around Turnhout. They must like a car around that area. And basically played them off against each other, said that so-and-so is interested and so-and-so is interested, and they're going to put this in, they're going to put that in. And it was Kennis that came out on top. They could have a car that was visible at the last control. They could have all the branding. And for a brand like Kennis, and, thinking of UK brands, throwing 2, 3, 4,000 pound at something where it's going to be consistent. You've got an area that's being used for 2 days. You've got photographs. You've got people milling in and out. It's easy money for those to share it, so just simple things like that, really. Just think outside the box, because 9 times out of 10, it'll be a yes or a maybe rather than a no. The littlest, the fewest bits that someone has to do, apart from just offer branding and give you branding, the better. I think the main thing that made the event last year, for me anyway, and there was points on the course last year when I was just laughing my head off, was that they opened up some magnificent areas, and it was the inspiration really for Quid Games 2 and what we can do. So they opened up 110 gates and doors in last year's city race. That was, parts of a hospital, it was parts of a nursery, it was parts of schools. So to look at it on the map, you would think, I've no idea how to get into there. And then it's only when you look closely, you'll see the thick black line has a little gap in it. And then all of a sudden you're running through school corridors to get back into the school playground. So Simple things like that, and 110 gates is a lot, but again, they took that upon themselves to think what will enhance people's experience here. Even just opening 5 gates or 5 doors, what could that do for your next urban event? It definitely make people talk about it. And as he says there, it's a risk if you don't have a lot of spare volunteers who can guard it, but it makes the courses memorable. And the key bit that I've said about the sponsors, but it's also about these bits as well, is making it a simple in and out run through, but interesting for the runners with minimal disruption is what it sells for people to allow access. So not having people run through miles of corridors and up down steps and everything else, but simply, we want to come in this way, we want to come out that way. They'll be in your place for 20 seconds maximum. That more than likely would be a yes. And that's what we found when we used the school. Without giving too much away, because I'll talk about more on next Thursday's webinar, but when we used the school at Coed Games 2, they literally were in the school grounds, well, in the school building for maybe 10 seconds. So getting towards the end, I promise, but the key takeaways, volunteers, they've built up a fantastic volunteer base at the EOC, and the full report goes 20, 30 pages. It does go into more about how they've built up a brilliant volunteer base. So as we said, we'll put it on the British Orienteering website in the next few days for you to see. But they've built a network beyond clubs. So it's not like you just have to rely on your local club for volunteers for the event. They've built up a countrywide network where, doesn't matter what club they're in, they come together every year to deliver ASOM, regardless of what club. Is that something we can be thinking of for major events as well? We've talked about sponsorship and municipal support. One of the things I think which was really interesting, which was mentioned a few slides back, was that they got the city council in turn out to send letters to every single resident saying that there was an orienteering event going on that weekend, to come along, to get involved, to cheer on. Basically, don't moan if there's an orienteering flag outside your house. Having that level of kind of credibility behind your event, that the council are backing it and it's going on regardless. What a fantastic thing to do. And it doesn't have to be a letter to every house, but it could definitely be in Rossendale Borough Council's newsletter. It could definitely be something that you work with local people and local authorities to get the word out there, maybe to ease permissions and moaning on the day, but also maybe to drive a bit of publicity to your event as well. So as the bottom bit says, ASOM, and they're proud of it, they prioritise participant experience over profit, resulting in high satisfaction and repeat attendance. The event is known for its atmosphere, urban exploration and international appeal. Most people have heard of ASOM. If you haven't heard of ASOM, then, look into it. But the majority of people know that when it's an ASOM weekend, you're going to have a good run. It's going to be fantastic. The arenas are going to be great. The elites are there. It's a fantastic weekend that they put on. So final thoughts. The research that I did into ASOM and Kono, it really opened my eyes that, as I keep going back to, it's not Scandinavia, it's not Sweden, it's not somewhere that the general public probably have a knowledge or an experience of doing the sport. They've just took this sport to the public and they've done it unapologetically by doing it their own way. They've got councils on board. They've sold it to them in a way that is beneficial, not only to the sport, but to the local population. Your communities can come out and do this. It's fantastic. Let's think about how we can do that with our own local authorities. They have festival-like events. They attract both elite competitors and newcomers. You've got people doing the city runs alongside people from the GB squad and the Spanish squad and everyone else. What a fantastic thing. We're not just working in silos. The last paragraph, I think, goes back to what I started with. The insights underline that the participants, especially younger ones, value more than just the race. They want social, cultural, and entertainment elements alongside competitive sport. It's not that we all of a sudden have to go out and start doing rock concerts or, diluting the sport in anybody's eyes, but we are competing with other things that are doing this. We are trying to attract a generation that is very openly in search of social engagement, content-worthy moments. So for us as a sport to not be thinking about how we can change that and how we can embrace that, we're going to be standing still. So that, I think, is the end of the slides. I will stop sharing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kay. I think there's a lot to take in there. I was sat there scribbling notes as I went. But I definitely liked I feel like the sort of mantra of going where the energy is. And I think when we're as a George at the running show this weekend, I think there was a lot of energy on the show, and it came down to us to direct that really as well. Places like that, the expos, people are there for a love of running in that case, but actually it's a great captive audience for us to really sell everything about our sport. I'm now going to open up the Q&A. I've not received anything via email thus far in terms of questions. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or the Q&A, or as Catherine has exemplary done, use the raise hand feature. And if you'd like to unmute Catherine, go for it.
Hi everybody. Kay, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I've learned loads. I'm definitely going to look up ASOM because I've not heard of it before. And things like actually hero controls that's a new term. I think that sort of novelty, memorable control leg is definitely something to think about. There are loads of really relatable points in what you were saying earlier that interlopers have tried over the past year or so. And one that I just wanted to ask a bit more about was your point about giving newcomers just enough information to get them going, because obviously they've turned up, they're raring to go, they don't want to be lectured for hours with information overload. And it'd just be really good if you've I suppose got any sort of more detailed points about what works, any sort of course script. What are the 3 main things that you think should be focused on, and keep it at that? Or if I think you mentioned pre-event information, if you're sending out anything, what works around that? Because we all know people are terrible at reading things.
Yeah, I mean,
have you tried anything else that works, like sort of I don't know, videos or reels, anything like that? Thanks.
I think one thing that can be successful, and I've seen it more so on the continent rather than the UK, but I think it could be quite a simple win. Is just having, with the newcomers, just having a really simple 10-minute course that they can do, before their main course, for example, so that it could, kind of like the warm-up controls at the JK, for example. We're all running around with a warm-up map to get our eyes in before the sprint. And just having something like that where they can keep really local, 2 or 3 controls that are, path junctions, and it could just be that, the basic colours, if we're in Parkland, for example, like you're looking for orange and peaches are paths and, dash lines, keeping it really simple in terms of what's relevant for their course, letting them have a go at a really simple course before then they're coming back to, then you can maybe give in another 3 or 4 different points about the map before they go out for their proper course, for example. So just giving it to them in bite-sized chunks. And I think something that works really well for PFO, and we send out, say we, the royal we, me, I send out quite a detailed final instructions email to anybody that's coming to an event. I highly doubt that the hardcore orienteers in the room read past the bit that tells them about parking and toilets, which is perfectly fine. But going on in that email tells you all about what format to expect. So, you'll pick up your map and you'll look for the purple circles, and they're your checkpoints. And so at the bottom of that email as well. So this is done we use SI entries. So via SI entries, you're able to send out an email to all participants before the event and after the event, really, with any information that you want to go on. So I kind of try and preload it with as many questions that I'm going to get as what I think I'm probably going to get, and just preload it with a lot of information. But I also put a pictorial kind of information at the bottom as well. You can attach it to the bottom of the email. That might be a map excerpt, a blank map, where I've just kind of written it with, like, this is a path, this is, what a checkpoint looks like. So I think definitely if I was a newcomer trying something, having a lot of information pre-event sent via email where I can just read it and digest it in my own time is great. Having that bite-sized chunk and then me doing 2 or 3 controls before coming back to the start and then doing a proper, say proper course, but like the course I've signed up for. People, might say, well, it's diluting it. They've got to see the map and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, with newcomers, we want people to achieve, we want people to succeed, and them doing 2 or 3 controls before they do the course, they're still not going to beat anybody that's doing the course anyway, so it's just for me, like I still see a few grumbles in the sport and maybe with my own club sometimes about, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. But it's just like, we want people in the sport, we want people enjoying themselves. Only then, will they come back. So I think there are good things like preload information if you use an event system. I'm not too sure on Race Sign Up or Fabian because, like I said, my club use SI entries, but I think they have the ability to send out emails beforehand and definitely send out emails afterwards as well. There's still so many clubs that I enter events for and I don't get any information before or after, and it's just it's like it's a simple thing to do to just say, here's the information, we're looking forward to seeing you and thank you for coming, the results are available, these are our next events, get signed up. So I think they're quite simple wins, really.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kane. Thank you very much, Catherine. I can see a virtual hand up and a physical hand up. I'll come to you first, Ian, with the physical hand up. If you want to pop yourself off mute. Okay, we'll go to Rick first. If you want to pop the question to me in an email, Ian, I'll get it asked if that's a better option.
Done it. Can you hear me
never
now?
mind.
All right.
Rick,
that was very good, Kay. Lots of good thoughts there, particularly in terms of the information. I think this visibility thing is quite important. The SYO, you probably know, runs a very good schools league. And I think with one event a month, aimed really at kids, but that doesn't bring their adult parents along, and it does, lots of those join SYO. But one big move we made was to put the start right outside the park cafes. It used to be in the corner. I think this was pre-Gripple Day, and we were worried about controls being stolen. But once Gripples came in, we decided we were going to put the start right outside the most visible place in the park, and everybody sees what's happening. And on the younger courses, we'd have the first control visible so people can see it. Often in speaking to newcomers, they just want to get running. You start telling them what it's about, and they just want to get off. So it's quite easy. If you've got to start, you could say, well, there's the first control, and then we have longer courses for runners. So visibility was really key on that. And we have like 600 runs at these events. In runners, the problem I find, I'm a member of Totley Running Club, which has got about 400 members. And runners are really scared of getting lost. They run on Burbage, which we had an event on at the weekend, and they're scared stiff of getting on a path they don't know. Absolutely scared stiff. And I've done courses and whatever, but they're still really wary about, we don't want to get lost. Running in pairs, I think, was a really good idea. And how we take that forward, I don't know, but that's a really good suggestion. But a really good presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Visibility, and wholeheartedly agree what you say about the people just want to get going. It's like, let them go, let them give it a try, let them come back and then go out again. It's trial and error.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. And now I'll the very patient Rick, who is still on mute. Rick, you're still on mute.
Oh dear, that's bad. Yeah, I'm just going to echo really what Catherine and Ian said there. With regards to what Catherine was asking about, sort of what to say or what to have at the start. We had a couple of maps stuck up on boards or beside the gazebo at the registration, just for people to look at with a big arrow, you are here, just because people are used to going to parks and finding these maps, say you are here, and trying to orientate it in the direction it should be orientated in as well. So it's little things like that. But also looking at, as Ian said, the visibility, I think, is really important, and trying to look as welcoming and professional as possible. So if you have a club gazebo or tent or banners, have them visible from the road or visible from the front gate again, just to attract, not necessarily to attract passers-by, but to attract people who've signed up who are newcomers, just so they have that focal point and they know where to go, and it creates a bit of a hub and a bit of a, and especially at the end as well, people hanging around and chatting. So and we certainly do a lot more refreshments after our activities and events now. Having a couple of big flasks of hot water and tea and coffee and biscuits. Just, it doesn't cost a lot. It's not a lot. It's pretty simple to do. You can ask anybody to just, can you can hand over the flasks. Can you bring the flasks next week or whatever? And it's not a big task, but it's somebody else can do it. It doesn't have to be the same person every week. Yeah, so it's just little things like that, I think, can create just much more welcoming atmosphere, and allows people to hang around and chat and discuss a map, and it allows you to have time to have conversations with newcomers. That's me. I'll mute myself again. Sorry. I was just insulting you anyway, Joe, so it's okay. You'd missed that bit.
It's just part of the job. I appreciate it. Thanks very much, Rick. And we have a hand up from Mary. I can't see you. I can see a black box, but I'm not sure. I believe it says you're muted, but I can't quite hear anything. This one might have to be an email, Mary. I apologise. We can't get any sound at the moment. I'll do a quick final pass as well to possibly give Mary an extra second. Do we have any more questions? I think we're all covered from the chat and the Q&A. Okay, in which case I will wrap things up on this one. So first of all, a huge thank you to Kay for the really interesting presentation. Dave, I think David took the words out of my mouth there in the chat. Really good round account of all the things that we can do for events as well. And if you enjoyed Kay's session, then you can come back next week for the Quid Game session as well. I'll quickly do the plug for next week's sessions, but in terms of this week, no more sessions. You got a few nights to get out on the courses. And then next week, starting with Monday, we have the Orienteering instructor qualification for clubs. On Tuesday, we have the National Trust with us for a session about the Responsible Experiences Providers Scheme. And on Thursday, we have Kay back with us again for Quid Games and digital memberships. So I hope that I will be seeing some of you again next week. I know there's a few faces who I see quite often in the webinars. It's always a pleasure to have you. And a huge thank you to everybody for attending this evening. I think that's about all from me. So I will say enjoy the rest of your evening, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.